Welcome to another episode of the Helping the Brave. I'm your host, Ed Parcaut, and today I'm going to sit down with Marine Corps veteran author Randy Timmerman. He's going to share stories from Vietnam, overcoming PTSD and alcoholism, and his inspiring journey hiking the Appalachian Trail in his 70s, all while highlighting the power of resilience, brotherhood, and personal healing. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Ed Parcaut of Helping the Brave, and let's bring in our guest today, Rand Timmerman. Thank you so much for coming to the show today. I appreciate you being here on Helping the Brave.
Thank you, Ed. Glad to be here.
My pleasure. We can get that book in a second. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
Tell everybody about your book. All right. The only one question I ask every time is what service and why?
I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in March of 1966. Came to on a bar and a pool table in a bar I'd been in all weekend, and barkeep came in Monday morning, turned the radio on, and they were talking about 1st Marine Division combat operations in Vietnam.
And so
I was 19 years old. I had been through 3 semesters of college, working 3 part-time jobs, and I made the decision. And a month later, I was sworn in at the War Memorial in Syracuse, New York.
And then how long were you in for?
I ended up being in five years.
Okay. I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
No, you said you were in for 5 years. I assume you were over at Vietnam.
Yes. Went over to Vietnam, served with the 1st Marine Division. My brother Ron had enlisted in the Army, and he was in down by Chu Lai in the Army. At one time, we were both machine gunners on helicopters, not the same unit, of course, but yeah, we both did. He actually did 2 tours. I did 1 tour, 13 months.
Did either one of you get drafted? So you joined. Did he get drafted?
No, we both enlisted.
Okay. Because that's unusual for 2 people from the same family to be in at the same time.
Yeah, he actually went in after or before I did. He was a year behind me in school. I'm the oldest. And he enlisted and went right over. I went to college for 3 semesters, and I enlisted. Yeah. It's in our family. My dad was a Mustang pilot in World War II. I had 2 uncles that fought in World War II, one of them on D-Day. You know, we were a kind of family of warriors.
Well, you guys are all in combat too, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, that's a totally different world than non-combat. I mean, it's so you're in, how long were you in Vietnam?
I was there 13 months. Did a lot of different jobs. I ended up being a Mustang Lieutenant the last couple of months. The lieutenants had a short lifespan in Vietnam in 1967. And so I was Mustang Lieutenant for the last 2 months. And then they said, you can go back to corporal. And actually, I could have gotten out shortly after that. It was a 2-year enlistment. And they said, or you can go to OCS to become an officer. So that's what I did.
So let's back up a second. Mustang Lieutenant. What's a Mustang Lieutenant?
It would be like a combat lieutenant during World War II, taking a listed guy who sort of got his act together and say, okay, you're going to be a lieutenant. Now you're going to go do that job.
Oh, really? And then do you get a pay increase? Do you actually automatic? So is it an actual a lieutenant permanently, or is it only for while you're there?
No, it's a temporary position.
Do you get any benefit out of it? This is the first time I've heard about it, Rand. So that's what I'm asking.
No, I would have come back to the States and I would have been a corporal again. But they gave me the option to go to officer candidate school at Quantico, Virginia, and I took it, which was the best decision I could have made because I had 30 days leave, and like a lot of my buddies, I was drinking my brains out, and I don't know, a lot of them kind of wandered off into the not too pleasant sunset, and it gave me purpose. And then it gave me a career because after I finished all the lieutenant training, all the officer training, and I was real honest to God 2nd lieutenant, and they couldn't take it away from me. And I have 2 WD-40s to prove it, I decided to go to the air wing. And I would have ended up being a forward observer, and probably a good chance I would have gone back. But I had a guardian angel. I didn't know it, but I had a gunnery sergeant who ended up being a 2nd lieutenant. And when I checked in at Cherry Point Air Station in 1968, after doing all the training as an officer, He was a captain, Captain Moan, officer of the day on a Sunday. And he asked me where I wanted to go. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I got all these schools. And one of them was the JAG school, Judge Advocate General School. And it was in Rhode Island. And I said, well, I've never been to Rhode Island. And on Monday, I was checking in at JAG school in Rhode Island, along with 99 other guys who were all captains and actually were college graduate and real life lawyers. They'd done law school in the whole 9 yards. And,
Now, so let's back up a second. So people who were lucky enough to watch JAG on TV, the actual TV show that was all about Navy and Marine Corps officers who were JAG. So when you went to JAG school, what did you learn at JAG school?
Well, it was all about Article 32, UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. And I already knew some of it, right?
Right, because you've been through it.
Well, all the enlisted people got trained on it, and so on and so forth. So anyway, those guys were more like wanted to drink a lot and do that. And I decided not to drink for a while and just kind of work at it and see what happened, because I liked it, actually. And I ended up getting the highest cumulative score, and I was the class honor man and really pissed those guys all off, because they're real life lawyers, right? And I'm just a wannabe at that point. And anyway, long story short, I went back to Cherry Point. They made me a legal officer, and I defended a couple of guys. One of them was for sleeping on watch, which in the Marine Corps is a death sentence. 2 years Leavenworth and a dishonorable discharge.
Wow.
Pretty much automatic. But I called a witness, and the jury in the military system is not your peers. The jurors are, was a colonel, a major, a captain, and totally ticked off the prosecutor. They acquitted him. And then I had another defense case that I did and got another acquittal. So then they made me a prosecutor.
They had to put you on the other side because you were too good.
Well, this happens all the time, actually, even in the civilian world.
Rand, let's back up a second. So when did you go to law school?
After I got out of the military.
So you were an attorney, and so most JAG people are attorneys, right?
Yeah, I wasn't an attorney, but I was doing an attorney's job.
Yeah, I was in physical therapy. I wasn't a physical therapist, but I was doing physical therapist job. I understand that. We're in the Navy. I was in the Navy. So it's in the military, you do jobs that you couldn't do on the outside.
Well, especially in wartime, and when they're trying to build up. Marine Corps standard level of manpower is 200,000. Marine Corps went from 200,000 to 1 million by 1970, around there.
Wow.
So if you could do a job, they will give you a shot at it. So, and
right. So now you said you were in for 5 years. This all happened in 5 years?
Yeah, and actually I got out in 4. They sent me down.
You have any time to do anything? I mean, most people, that sounds like that was a whole lifetime that you just went through. For most
Pretty
people.
much, yeah, it was. It was amazing. But I managed to get into Syracuse in January of 1970, and I got my BA in 3 years, and I got my law degree, and away I went.
Wow! And then you were attorney. You retired as an attorney.
Right. I was a self-employed attorney for 40 years. I only worked for somebody else a couple of years, and then went off on my own. And I had a great career, but I had an alcohol problem. I was a functional alcoholic for 40 some years. It wasn't only at the end that it got me to the point where I really had to do something. I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, we didn't even know it after the Vietnam. That hadn't even been invented yet, but a lot of us came back pretty well traumatized. But I was driven, and I wanted to be successful. I came from a very poor background. Nobody in my family had ever been to college, and I was really determined to do well, and I did. It took a while. Well, nightmares came, and I had those issues, and I started medicating with alcohol at times. And in the end, I ended up in the VA. The first time I ever went to VA, I went in handcuffs in a state trooper car, and I was 66 years old.
Wow.
And they took me to the psych center. I'd finally called for help. and I didn't get it right away, but eventually I did get committed into a really good recovery program. It's an anonymous program for alcoholics, and I've been sober now for almost 11 years, over 11 years, 3 months.
That let's go back to the PTSD you talked about, where you said that they didn't even know about it. I mean, things changed from World War II to Vietnam. You guys were in combat constantly, where in World War II there was days and months that they weren't constantly fighting, and it's all the way same with moving on past all the other wars that we've been through. So it was a totally different thing for everybody to understand. Now they definitely know if you have PTSD, you need to be seen for it. It's not the scarlet letter like it used to be. You need to go in and get some, you never get over it. You just learn how to deal with it.
That's right. That's right. The hypervigilance and all that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The average grunt in World War II saw combat 10 days out of the year. In Vietnam, it was 156 days. I did a little research on it because I made a presentation at one of my grandkids' schools about it. And yeah, we saw way more combat than was normal. At that time, especially, Vietnam was brutal, absolutely brutal.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and then you see, I interviewed a guy who was in the National Guard, right? So you think reservist, not going to see much. He was 60 months over there.
Wow.
Yeah.
No,
yeah. And it messed him up.
Oh, yeah. It messed a lot of guys up. It messed a lot of my friends up. Some of the ones that came back with me that did not get 30 days leave and then go back into training. See, the best part for me was I went right back into training. Very difficult, hard, intense training, right? And it gave my mind and my body time to heal and to focus. I don't know what would have happened, but the other guys, some of them I grew up with, they started turning to alcohol. Their lives went to shit. And they committed suicide. Some of them directly by alcohol or indirectly.
Right.
I can name you 4 guys. If I'm not going to, but yeah.
And the problem with the VA is they don't recognize certain things. When they say 22 a day, it's really not 22 a day people committing suicide. It's 50 a day if you figure all the different things. And if you look at it, it's veterans 50 and older are 70% of that number.
Yeah. Yeah. You've done a lot of research too.
I've been doing Helping the Brave for over 4 years. I've talked to vets constantly each week, everything else. Plus I finally myself, I've been in the mortgage industry, and it's finally, what happened to that industry. And so it was like, I got a lot of free time. And now I started thinking about things, and things came back to bite me in the butt. And so I started dealing with it and then researching more about it to understand it and why there was such a difference, and how, because some people think if they didn't see combat, they can't have PTSD, even though they were medics and other stuff that they saw. I mean, most medics who are in combat don't see as much as what an EMT driver or, ambulance driver on a base sees all weekend or the next time. There's so much stuff they see that can affect them, or if their normal job is something else in the burn unit or something else. There's just so many things that can happen that everybody needs to go get their benefits. So did you finally get your benefits through the VA for your PTSD?
No, I mean, I didn't seek any benefits I ended up there. I asked to go to the VA. I had no idea what I was getting. Actually, the VA has been pretty good for me.
I know, but there's what you don't understand, Rand. There's so much you can get from the VA if you get, your disability for your PTSD and other stuff. Just the benefits you get from it is worth going through it. And a lot of guys are like, I want to leave it for other people. No, there's plenty of money for other people. Has nothing to do with that. There's more of a push now to get vets in through the system to get their benefits that they're owed.
You're right. Yeah, I did get disability last year, actually. My brother and I both, my brother said, I'm going to put in for it now because we're both retired, right? And you're on a fixed income, and then inflation is going up, and you watch it's getting harder to live. So I'd put in for it too. And I actually got it just back in January.
Well, good. I hope.
I am on disability now. You're absolutely 100% right.
Well, good. I hope. And if you didn't get 100%, there's many ways to go back and get to 100%. So.
Well, I didn't get 100%, but I'm satisfied with what I got.
Well, the reason I bring that up at 100%, depending on the state you're at, you don't have property taxes. There's so many other things that you get for being 100%. You don't pay vehicle stuff. There's so many reasons. Are you married?
I am, yeah.
Your wife would get medical
Right.
through the VA if
Yeah.
you were 100%. I'm not trying to push you to get it. When I went through this whole system, I had a ranger who helped me, and he was really, really good. But I'm in Modesto, California, right outside of Silicon Valley, and we've started our own benefits company. I'm not trying to get your business. I'm just letting you know, because of the fact of what I've learned and how it's so much easier if you do it right and how to set it up properly. So that's what our goal is. Our goal is to make it to where a veteran can fill out all their stuff for $97 and get all their benefits, and then hit to where you get to, if you have enough stuff to get to 100%. So,
yeah.
But let's move on. Enough about benefits. Okay. But everybody should get their benefits, but so many older people are like, no, I don't need, you know what? They're there. If you're married and you're 100%, that's like $4,000 a month, non-taxable. Right. And plus you get medical, no taxes, all that kind of stuff. It's worth it. It's a change. I wish when I went in the 90s, and it's probably, if you ever would have went at that time, they denied you constantly. They fight this, and now it's a totally different. Everybody knows how to work the system to get through this stuff. Okay. All right. So when you were retired out, I saw that you decided, where do you live right now, Rand?
I'm in Syracuse, New York.
Okay. Why did you want to walk the Appalachian Trail at 72?
Well, I didn't. I sure as heck didn't. I had done quite a bit of hiking. I ran 26 marathons. I was a really active guy.
26 marathons, huh?
Yeah, legal career. I cross-country ski raced all over North America. So I had that drive to do things, right. And it kept a lot of my PTSD and other things at bay pretty much. My alcoholism didn't really, I drank too much sometimes, but I got married 4 times. I'm on my 4th marriage. My wife and I have been together now 25 years. So, I had a relationship. I had all kinds of problems that I couldn't see. Because
you dealt with it by overworking, drinking. And so that's then when I was telling you about things changed in my life, I was a workaholic and an exerciseaholic. And then once all that slowed down, then you had to actually deal with things. And that's one of the things people don't realize is you have this issue and you don't understand what's driving you. It's driving you so you don't think about the things that you saw or certain things. You're just focused on other things. And I have found most veterans ruin every relationship in their life and then finally deal with their PTSD.
That's right. That's kind of my story in a way. So what happened was when Ronnie came back from Vietnam, he he started going out with our mother's best friend, Edie, who was 14 years older than him, had 7 kids and was divorced. And I thought that was the craziest thing in the world. Edie was special, and Ronnie married her. They ended up moving to Utah. He became a bishop in the Mormon church. He was a very spiritual man his whole life. And after my first encounter in Vietnam, I didn't want anything to do with God. I just flipped him off. It was a gift in a way, because you never know how you're going to react that first get-go. You know what I mean? And for me, guys that I thought were better than me were getting slaughtered, and I was filled with a rage I didn't even imagine that I had inside of me. And I probably wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't had that, because I just became a ferocious fighter. And so, and then that whole determination and everything. But anyway, come back, Ronnie, kind of the same way, but he's a tough guy. We're not big guys. We're both 5'8", weight, we would weigh around 160, 170 pounds. And, but we were both very active. So when Edie died, Ronnie thought that she had a massive stroke in 2011. And then she had more, and he took care of her for 6 years. She died in November of 2017. I went out to see him in January of 2018. I had never actually been to Utah. We'd only see each other about once a year when they came back east. So I went out and I said, well, what are you going to do? Because I could tell he was hurting really, really bad. And he said, I'm going to get on a bus and go down to Springer Mountain, Georgia, and I'm going to walk the Appalachian Trail. And I said, well, that's a really bad plan. Because I had done a fair amount of hiking in the Smokies. I like to do these recon by myself, weekend, go up in the woods, walk all over the place by myself, hang out with the bears and the snakes and, all that kind of stuff. So I knew quite a bit about it. Turned out Ronnie knew quite a bit about it in Utah, too. There are a lot of good hiking out there. So anyway, long story short, I said I'd go with him. And that's what we did. I asked him, when are you going to go? And he said, March 22nd. I'm like, oh, my God. Now, at this point, I have an artificial left knee that is long over what the doctor said it would last. Yeah. My right leg is a half inch shorter than my left because of damage from a motorcycle accident that they just ended up taking everything out. So it's been bone on. I ran 26 marathons with a knee with no medial meniscus or anterior cruciate ligaments, bone on bone. So, and I ran it pretty good, but so I didn't know if I could even do it physically. But we went down and we started walking, man. We took 2 vehicles. We didn't do it the traditional way. We discovered that every 10 or 15 miles in between that range, there's a road going across the Appalachian Trail. So we took 2 vehicles and we would start out at a point, and then Ronnie would drive around to the next road, go up on top where the Appalachian Trail was. He would hike south. I would hike north. He would get my truck and he'd come back around, and then we'd stay there that night. And that's how we did it. We leapfrogged up through the Appalachian Trail. We both carried about a 20-pound pack. Now, there's lots of places where you can't do that. In the Smoky Mountains, you got to there's like 75 miles. You got Clingman's Dome is in the middle there. You can do 2 35-mile sections. Priest, there's 35. So sometimes we had to carry the full pack, but a lot of times we didn't. Most of the time we didn't. And we couldn't have done it if we'd had to do that. It was incredibly difficult. We had a lot of problems. Ronnie did it like what Ronnie was doing, my brother, the emotional pain was so bad that he was doing it more to just have the physical difficulty, the pain, and it would block out some of that other stuff, right? And then he had some spiritual things that happened on the trail that I wrote about in the book, and that's why it's called a spiritual passage. And I wrote in there about how my recovery. So there's a chapter that talks about where we went from one day, where to, what mountains we went over. I took 5,000 pictures. I walked it like I'm never coming here again. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to, some days I would take 40 or 50 pictures. I'd go and I'd see something. I go, wow, holy crap, look at that. And I just take a picture. He's just marching, So we got all done. I had 5,000 pictures. We had our journals. Ron was really precise about where we were, where we went, what mountains we went over. I was more precise about all the people we ran into, their trail names. My trail name was Rambo. And his was Attitude Indicator because he became a commercial pilot. He was flying tourists through the Grand Canyon, stuff like that. Yeah, that's how we did. A lot of funny stories in there. Every other chapter is either about some spiritual thing that Ronnie experienced, or I went through step by step how I did my recovery program.
Wow.
So I was sober when we did the trail. I couldn't have done it if I hadn't been sober.
How long did it take you?
It took 3 years. We did it in about 6 months. I only did 1,863 miles. Of the 2,190. The Appalachian Trail is like 2,000 miles long. It goes over 600 mountains. There are 500,000 feet of elevation changes. 3 million people walk on it, some part of it every year. About 3,000 try to do the whole thing. Of that, about 17% make it. So only about 450 to 500 people every year make it. It's a very small group. I don't know if anybody our age ever did it. We did 1,400 and some the first year, and then we just ran out of gas. I lost 30 pounds. Ronnie, we're below high school weight. It was physically, there are a lot of things that happened I wrote about in the book. Some of them are funny. There's some really funny things that happened. And, but we ran out of gas, and then Ronnie said the next year, you want to try to finish it? I said, sure. So we went again, and we had some more adventures and misadventures. And then I fell down a rock slide on Wilcox Mountain in Massachusetts. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'm almost to the top, Ed. I'm like 10 feet from the top. I've climbed up this. If I showed you a picture and said that's where the trail goes of a rock slide, you say there's no way. Nobody would ever in their right mind. That's where there's lots of places where that's the way the trail is. It's unbelievable. And I got within 10 feet of the top. I broke 4 ski poles. I fell down every day. I mean, it is very challenging. If I had just fallen face forward, I've been fine, right? Might have cut myself or something, but I would have been fine. But I stabbed with my pole to try to not fall. And when I did, I twisted around and I swan dived off that thing down. And I closed my eyes and I said, this is going to hurt a lot. It hurt way more than I could possibly imagine. More than anything ever in my life that I can remember where it didn't knock me out, right? What happened was my foot got wedged. When I finally could look around and figure out what was going on, I'm covered with blood, and my foot got wedged between 2 rocks. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't never made it. Anyway, long story short, I ended up crawling up to the top, and I either go back down and go 3 miles, or I got to go 9 miles the other way. And I just couldn't bear the thought of going back down that thing. So I just started walking. And you know how it is when you get wounded or hurt bad. If you start moving,
right,
it's really painful. But then after a while, it kind of just morphs into this really hot, achy type of, it's much more manageable. But you also know that when you stop, it's going to be really bad. And that's what happened. And the next morning, when I got out of the tent, I couldn't do anything. And Ron said, we got to go home. You're really hurting bad. So we went home. I don't know, within a couple of days, I'm starting to walk again. And a few weeks later, Ronnie says, you want to try to finish it? And I said, sure. So we went back. I did another 300 miles.
Wow.
And we're in the Whites. And we went around Washington because the weather was so bad, they closed it. They do that a lot. Mount Washington?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the highest winds in North America ever recorded, 246 miles per hour or something like that at the top. Gets snow every month of the year. So we went up and did Moosilauke, and then I did Wolf. And then we were going to go back and do Washington, and my pain was 7, 8, 9, and we walked in there to start up the first big part of Mount Washington, and I just turned around and started crying. I said, I can't do it anymore. I just can't. So Ronnie ended up finishing it the next year with his son. So yeah, that's how that went.
Wow. Yeah, I did the Community Santiago, but that's not anywhere close to that.
Yeah.
The walk in Spain. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Actually, one of my nieces went over and did that. That's a couple 100 miles, right?
Well, if you do it the full thing, it's 400 miles. But you have to do at least from Sarria on. We did about 200 miles the first year because we were still working, and we could only take 3 weeks off, had kids and everything, and so we did the first time and swore we'd never do it again, and then came back 2 years later and did from the Portugal route, and we were like, okay, we're never going to do the Portugal route again because we liked Spain better than we liked Portugal, because there's nothing wrong with Portugal, but everything had tuna fish on it because we were close to the water. And so and I don't mind tuna fish, but I don't want it on my pizza.
No. I'm with you on that, by the way. I'll eat it, but I don't really like it that much.
Yeah, here's a Hawaiian pizza. No. There's no tuna fish on a Hawaiian pizza. I don't care what you say.
Right.
Yeah. But then, and back to what you talked about, what people don't realize is, because my orthopedic through the VA was like, you need a total knee replacement. I'm like, not at my age. And I worked in physical therapy and I researched them. I was like, damn, those things have not changed much in the last 25 years at all. And people don't realize you only get 15 years out of them. And the second one that they put in does not attach as well as the first one. There's
Right.
so many problems with those, which they need to come up with something else. And I researched it even more just recently because I'm bone on bone. That means I can't do the stuff that I want to do. And there's some stuff that's coming out, new knee stuff in the next couple of years, and actual cartilage that they're able to put in there or rebuild that they have not been able to do before. So there's a lot of changes coming.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. They told me 10 years, 10,000 miles. That knee, which is painful still, but I've got at least, I figured out, I don't know, last year I had 52,000 miles on it, and it's been 25 years.
Yeah, you're way over. You're due for a replacement.
It's way, yeah, but it's still, and I still walk 6 or 7 miles every day.
Wow.
I go to 1 or 2 meetings every day. I work with guys every day. You know, I do the whole deal, stay sober, and I I feel blessed. I really do.
Well, well,
So,
more power to you because I mean, you said you did marathons with bone on bone. I mean, that's just brutal, as I know how bone on bone feels. So
yeah.
we
Well,
went and saw the movie about the Death Valley 135. What's it? I forget what it's called. Where it's like the hardest. It's not a marathon. It's more than that.
it's
And
ultra, right? Yeah.
ultra marathon thing. And one lady who's finishing it every year, her husband said he's attorney. Every year they tell her she's never going to be able to do it again because she's got the bone on bone. Oh, she does it again. It's like it's just a matter of how much your willpower is with that pain.
Yep. The last one I ran was the marathon. I was 55. It was the Rock and Roll Marathon in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And I had promised each of my girls I would run a marathon with them. And so this was the youngest one. She wanted me to do it. And I said, okay, fine, I promised. And my orthopedic surgeon said, don't do it. You'll never run again. And, but I did it. Actually, I did it in 3 hours and like 45 minutes. I mean, I had pretty good time for a 55-year-old man. And I never ran again. So I just been walking. I just turned into a walker.
Well, people don't realize if you're looking to stay healthy and keep the weight off, walking is way better than running.
Absolutely.
Period. You burn more calories and everything else walking than you do running. And people don't understand that. When I dropped the 60 pounds I dropped this last year, it was doing stuff out there walking. But now it's gotten to a point where it's better for me to not do that amount of weight and stuff on my knee. It's better for me to do certain other things. So.
Well, the secret for me is I use poles. So I do all my walking with poles. It's taking 20, 30% of the weight off my knees and keeping my upper body in good shape. So if I was just walking regular, I couldn't do 7. I'd probably do 1 or 2 probably. But with the poles, I can scoot right along pretty good.
Well, then speaking of, so when I did the Camino de Santiago the first year, we came out of this one place and it's starting to rain, and then we hit a blizzard. Well, I have a rain cover on with my sticks underneath it, and I did not want to take my backpack off because of the mud, and because it was just, even though it was snowing in a blizzard, it was muddy as we'll all get up. And I was like, man, I really need a pole. I looked to the right, and there was a pole leaning up against the fence. And they say on the Camino de Santiago, what you need will be provided for you. And it is. I still have that walking stick to this day here at the house. I brought it all the way back. And I interviewed another guy I was talking to, and we were stories. He goes, dude, I did the thing. I lost so much weight. I couldn't keep my pants up, and I didn't have a belt. He goes, and one day I was like, it was just too much for my pants. I look over in the tree, and there was a pink belt hanging in the tree. And I go, it fit, didn't he? Goes, yes, it did. I go, you brought it home, didn't you? He goes, yes, I did. So, yeah. So the people, yeah. So that is one of the things that I would say one of the best walk. And I did it to figure out, and I did that, we did it. We keep seeing things on Facebook. The first one was like 8 years ago. The second was 4 years ago. But I didn't do it for a spiritual thing. I did it just to do the walk and figure out what I was going to do next and everything else. And my wife did this, kind of the same thing. But this stuff that's out there that you challenge yourself with is what makes you stronger, and you figure out what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny story. So in June 21 of 2018, I'm hiking up Hogback Mountain, which is in Virginia, right? And I remember it because it was a special day. So my brother and I always left early, and usually there was nobody around, right? So I'm walking up Hogback Mountain, and I hear noise behind me, and I know it's a couple hikers coming. And I turn around, and it's Growler. He looked like you, kind of with the beard and everything. And he was a young guy in his 20s. He looked like Paul Bunyan, big guy. And he had his girlfriend Coors Light with him and another girl, and they're naked. They don't have any clothes on. And I pull over, and Growler comes up, and I say, "What's going on?" And he goes, "Well, Rambo, it's naked day on the Appalachian Trail. Don't have to wear any clothes." I said, "Well, I'm going to do you all a favor." But I'm going to let you go ahead of me. So they go ahead of me. Well, then Growler is in the back. So when I start out, I'm looking up. I'm not seeing the ladies. I'm seeing the back of Growler, and he's got as much hair on the back of him as he does on the front, pretty much. And so I pulled over. I decided to let him get out of sight. So then when I got up to the top, which took a while, I got up there and they had their clothes back on. I was like, okay, good.
Yeah, it's like when you're walking the Community Santiago, a lot of people do it, and there was a group of people chanting, and me and my wife was like, oh, shut up, you know what I mean? It's like you're walking and you just hear that constantly. Finally we did the same thing. We stopped, let them go by, and let them keep going, because it's like, yeah, that's your thing, that's not our thing.
Did you get in bubbles where you're hiking like with the same people?
Yeah, we saw so many. Yeah, so we got to meet a lot of people, and some of the same people every day we would run into, no matter when we started at each end of each thing. And then there's people not from there's people I knew from my town that were there, but I never saw them. I saw other people from around us, and we'd run into them constantly.
Yeah. One day I was hiking. We were in a bubble where there was this Oriental guy. I don't know if he's Chinese, Japanese. I don't know what he was for sure, but he was Oriental and very well built, kind of good looking man. He had the bun, and he's dressed like a samurai, only like the fancy outfit. I swear he probably had a sword underneath his cloak somewhere. But and so one day he saw me, and he walked up to me and he grabbed my hands. He says, "I want to pray with you to help you with your knees," right? So I said, "Okay." And then he starts doing this chanting thing like you were talking about. And I'm sitting there and I go, I think he just said Macbeth. And then I realized he's reciting Shakespeare. So he goes on for like 10 minutes, and then he finally goes, "Do you feel better?" I said, "Oh yeah, I feel a lot better."
But you really didn't want to relive Macbeth again.
No.
All right, Rand, thanks so much for being on the show today. I appreciate getting to know your story. Can you put your book in the screen there? Because I didn't get this. So for people who are watching, they can see your book cover. A Spiritual Passage. Is that on Amazon?
Yes, it is. If they put in A Spiritual Passage, it will pop up my website. Also, it's on Amazon.
What's your website, Rand?
It's randtimmerman.com.
All right.
No dots, no nothing. Small case, Rand Timmerman, all run together.com, and that's it. I'll pop right up.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Rand, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you too, Ed. Thank you. Semper Fi.
Yeah. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Helping the Brave. Big thanks to Randy Timmerman for sharing his credible journey from the Marine Corps to recovery, his Appalachian Trail adventures. Check out his book, Spiritual Passage, on Amazon, or visit Rand Timmerman. That's RandTimmerman.com. Remember, you're a vet. Don't hesitate to seek the benefits and support you deserve. Until next time, stay brave and stay connected.